The Chinese Grand Prix returns with a bang as Lando Norris secures a shock pole position for the sprint race tomorrow at the Shanghai International Circuit after quite literally navigating his way through the Shanghai River. It's been a day I don't think anyone in the F1 paddock will ever forget. From the F1 paddock is, of course, lead editor Ian Parks, who joins myself, Nick Golding, to discuss what has been a wet, fiery and wild return of the Chinese Grand Prix. Ian, I'm going to let you take it away because I have no idea where we start after what's been a day of firsts for the sport.
Just call me Poncho Parks for today, mate. I think that's, as you can see, I'm dressed in the finest wet attire I could find just to bring you this wonderful, wonderful video blog for today from the wet, windy, cold Shanghai International Circuit. I've missed the last two Grand Prix in Australia and Japan, and I've come back to this. Look at it. It's wonderful. Oh, wow. This is brilliant. Yes, glad to be back covering F1 in its finest. Wow, what a day.
I mean, where do we start? Norris on pole for the sprint race with Hamilton alongside him. The British drivers turned up in the horrible conditions. I wonder where they get that from. But I think we've got to start actually with a first for Formula One. I say it's a first because it happened twice today. Obviously, going into the Grand Prix this weekend, all the discussions were on the track surface, and obviously it's not been used in really since 2019 on a level like F1. We saw not one, but two grass fires. I mean, you've been in the paddock for a long time, and even you said you've not seen this happen before.
Yeah, everybody's going to be looking at me smiling at this surely during this video blog. It's got to be. This is the first. I don't know about the fires trackside. This is most definitely a first for me, I can tell you that. This is fun, mate, I've got to say. Yeah, to be honest, I've never seen anything like that. Not that I can recall in all my time in Formula One. Just to give it the explanation from what we're led to believe is the sparks on the under tray of the cars that were flying past went flying onto the grass. We know that this circuit has recently been painted with bitumen simply to try and give the top layer, which has not had anything done to it since the Shanghai International Circuit opened in 2004, just to give it a degree of protection, particularly after 5 years away as well. There's barely been an event run on this track as well over that period of time. So rather than do a complete resurfacing, they thought they would try and go for a mend and make do kind of surface. As I say, painted it with bitumen, and what appears to have happened is some of that bitumen has eventually gone and made its way onto the side of the track. And with these sparks coming off the cars, you've only got to see night races to know what the sparks look like. Well, obviously you don't get to see those kind of sparks during the daytime, but that's basically what happened. Hot, tiny little shards of metal falling onto the side of the track. And as you mentioned, and now we have some wonderful music playing in the background as well, just to add to the drama of this wonderful video vlog. And not once in practice, but also again during the sprint qualifying session, which was, in fairness, let's face it, it was quite a classic at the end of the day. As Bernie Eccleston always said, just add water. That's what we got today, a bit of water, and it certainly spiced things up when it comes to the final shootout, that's for sure.
Well, I think it's funny you mentioned that because we were both talking in the podcast, looking ahead to this week at the controversy and slight frustration amongst the drivers and the teams of this weekend being a sprint one, given we've not been here since 2019, but actually sprint qualifying, given the drama, SQ1 was dry, SQ2 was dry but had a few drops of rain, and then SQ3, the heavens opened, and it's delivered what was probably the most exciting session of the year. I think that's a fair remark.
I think certainly for that last 10 minutes, that's without a shadow of a doubt. I should say, just like water, and it gave us a tremendous affair. Lando Norris, that was even the story within the story there when you think about it, because it looked like it got pulled, then the lap was deleted, and then it was reinstated. That was, as I say, a story within a story. We got Lewis alongside him all British front row. Fernando Alonso, third on the grid, Max down in fourth. That, would you believe, of all the sprint qualifying sessions over these past couple of years, that is his worst performance. But the Lando Norris situation, that was quite remarkable. As I say, that Lando deleted, then reinstated, back on pole, just when it looked as if Lewis was going to take pole, and which would have been the first for Mercedes in the sprint qualifying session. The reason why it was reinstated, according to the FIA, well, from what we're led to believe from Andrea Stella anyway, the McLaren team principal, he said that the reason why the lap is deleted initially was because Lando had run wide out of turn 16 on one flying lap going into the pole lap. And the belief was initially within the stewards room that as he ran wide, that compromised the flying lap, that proved to be the pole lap. However, it was eventually appreciated that in running wide, it actually cost him time going on to that pole lap. And that's why ultimately, and thankfully for Lando, that whole time was reinstated, and he will start the sprint race on Saturday on pole position.
And of course, the sprint race is before qualifying for the actual race because we're under the new sprint format. But I know obviously we've had qualifying, or sprint qualifying in mixed conditions. What have we actually learned from today? Because the free practice was only 60 minutes, and then it's been straight into quali. Going into the sprint race tomorrow, then actual qualifying. Do we have any idea really of a pecking order?
I think Lando himself summed it up in his TV interview straight after clinching the poles, and he said he was clueless. So that gives you some idea. This is a weird and wonderful track. We've had weird and wonderful conditions, which quite clearly we're still getting right now. It is at least forecast to be dry for the actual sprint race itself. And if that's the case, then arguably that would lend itself to suggest that Max will come through from fourth position to take the victory, because Mario Isler, Pirelli Motorsport director, said during the press conference earlier on Friday that the best out of practice on the tyres was Max and the Red Bulls. Checo didn't quite get it all together during his session. At one stage was on the provisional pole position, dropped down the pecking order in the end. So you could arguably suggest that we should see the Red Bulls come through. How quickly Max will be able to get past Fernando in third, Lewis in second, and Lando in third is anybody's guess. Hopefully they can give us a really good entertaining race at least.
You mentioned obviously that tomorrow is at the moment forecast to be dry. How long roughly is the current rain meant to continue for? Because is there the concern that given how little running the circuit gets, that actually come the sprint race tomorrow, that there could still be damp patches in places on what is already a questionable surface?
I doubt it. It's scheduled to... It's actually stopped raining as we speak, just looking out now. There's just a few spits and spots in the air. The rain is actually scheduled to last, if it, coming and going now over the next 2 or 3 hours through into about 9-10 o'clock local time. So you would expect, if that was the case, that come the sprint race tomorrow, that it's going to be dry. So I don't expect it to have any kind of impact on the shortened 1/3 race distance.
The only real shock, I suppose, today was obviously George Russell being eliminated in SQ2 and P11. He lost all temperature in his tyres in the pit lane because he was behind 12 other drivers. Do you think Mercedes seem to have slightly better pace, but what do you think is going to be possible for him from P11 in the sprint tomorrow? And obviously he's then got the qualifying as well. There's so much going on with this new sprint format.
Yeah, George is obviously just going to be hoping he can move forward a few places, or at least try and claim a point or two it really is anybody's guess as to what's going to happen. Bearing in mind, you've got the two state cars in the top 10. The most enormous cheer, as you can appreciate, went round the Shanghai International Circuit when the Chinese fans realised that their home hero, Zhou Guanyu, had managed to qualify in the top 10. He's starting 10th, so George has got him directly in front. You would expect very quickly that George would get past, that he would catch up ultimately, past the state cars well through Bottas, he's well ahead. As I say, for him, it's just a question of damage limitation, doing what he can. But all eyes for the Chinese fans are most definitely going to be on show, because they're going to want him to get his elbows out and give those around him a really good race. They want to see some points from their boy. There's still a possibility. Let's not rule it out. It's the kind of circuit where we know overtaking is possible. Who knows? There's a possibility. There's a chance. We've seen anything happen on what has been quite a remarkable Friday here. And let's hope for the most quite remarkable to continue going into Saturday and the rest of the weekend as well. So,
for you, being back in the paddock this weekend after 2 races away, how have you found it? Obviously, has it been good to be back in, well, conditions that are actually worse than back home, which is, I guess, a shock?
It's bizarre because yesterday, Thursday, we'd had the most wonderful sunny day. The day before that, it absolutely poured it down. So it's just really coming and going. It's a typical April day in many respects, Edward, as you would expect in the UK and Europe. You just don't know what you're going to get from one day to the next. This is true April. As I say, the rest of the weekend is slated to be dry. Now, I was led to believe coming out that the entire 4 days here would be dry, but lo and behold, look at what we've had late afternoon, early evening here at Shanghai on Friday. So could it change? Most possibly. So I'm not going to call the weather, but as I say, for now, it is scheduled to be dry. We'll see what happens.
And just finally, predictions. I mean, this might be the one time our predictions come true, because we normally go for something wacky and wild. So let's go for a top 3 prediction for the sprint race, and then I guess a bold prediction for qualifying itself.
For the sprint race, I guess you got to hope that Lando can at least hold on to a top 3, claim a podium. It's going to be difficult. As I say, he's got the 2 Red Bulls behind him. They do still look like the class acts, even of what has been a very truncated day, a very difficult to read day. So I'm simply going there on, what Mario Isler has turned around and said with regard to the way the Red Bulls reacted on fire so far. So that's my not very bold prediction at the end of the day. And as for qualifying after that, if it does stay dry, then that's when I think we are going to see the RB20s really stretch their legs, prove their class, and come to the fore.
Well, I agree. I think with qualifying, if it is going to be fully dry, then I think Max looks to have the best 1-lap pace. In terms of the sprint race, I'm going to go a Norris win, Max P2, and Fernando P3. But an even bolder prediction, I'm going to go, we're going to have another 2 grass fires tomorrow. Ian, go and get yourself a dry and warm up. Make sure you're keeping an eye on racingnews365.com for all your Chinese Grand Prix content, and let us know in the comment section below what you have found for so far of the first sprint weekend of 2024 from myself and a very wet Ian. We'll catch you tomorrow for the next F1 update. See you later.